Blackhawks lose 6-3 is the final versus Vancouver. This caps off not the best Blackhawks day in history. It starts with the team trading their captain Nick Foligno earlier this morning, and it ends with a 6-3 loss to the worst team in the NHL. This game started off with a lot of action. Vancouver scored 3 goals in like the first 5 minutes or so of this game. The Blackhawks got actually the first goal of this game. It was about a minute, 2 minutes in. Ryan Donato with a really nice play. He came in, chipped it basically to himself, banked it in off the inboards behind the net, banked it to himself, and then made a move on the goaltender and was able to finish for a nice goal for Donato. The Canucks made it 3-1 just a few minutes after that opening goal from Ryan Donato, but the Blackhawks had it 3-2 at the end of the first. Ilya Mikheyev capped off a nice passing play between Bertuzzi, Moore, and then Mikheyev finished it. And then Frank Nazar got on the board in the second period to tie the game. Great for Nazar, who has not scored in a long time. He got a tip in off a point shot from Alex Vlasic, and at that point it was tied. Blackhawks played really well in the second period. The Canucks really generated nothing through that middle frame, but then come the third period, the Blackhawks had a couple chances, but they weren't able to capitalize. The Canucks got 1 goal. It was kind of a broken play on the power play, just a seemingly harmless shot towards the net. Arvid kind of misplayed it, or it took a weird hop, whatever it was. It bounced up in the air, and Brock Besser batted it in over Arvid, and that gave the Canucks a 4-3 lead. They were able to hold on to that throughout the rest of the third period, and they tacked on 2 empty net goals to make this a 6-3 final. There were a few positives in this game, one being that Wyatt Kaiser returned to the lineup. I thought he looked a lot like the Wyatt Kaiser we've seen this season, so I thought he played well in his return. I expect him to just continue to build on his play and also his ice time. He only played 16 minutes in this one. The Blackhawks were running 7 defensemen, so that played a bit of a factor, though Ethan Del Mastro only played 7:42, so he wasn't much of a factor. Frank Nazar picked up 2 points in this loss. Good for him, because he has not been super productive as of late, and I know he really wants to get back to the form he knows he can be at. We've seen it over these last 2 or 3 games. He's starting to look a little bit more like himself, and hopefully tonight with the goal, he also picked up an assist. Hopefully that can spark a little bit for Frank Nazar. Connor Bedard was pointless and a -2 in 23.5 minutes, but this was one of his better games of the season. He was fantastic, generating chances left and right. He hit the shaft of the goaltender's stick. He hit the post. He had a chance that just went over the bar. Like, he was generating chances left and right. Easily could have had 2, 3, 4 goals in this game. He was fantastic. I'm almost like, I'm thinking of it like Bedard's not capitalizing on the chances right now, and it's okay, because next season he's going to be capitalizing on all these chances, maybe even more than what's average, and that's going to lead to a just point explosion, and he's going to get all the points that he deserves. That's kind of how I'm thinking of it, almost like in NBA terms. You know, you're not hitting your 3-point shot, you go 0 for 10 on a stretch, but you're going to get back to your season average at some point, so you'll probably have a hot stretch where you're shooting 50% in order to get back there. If that makes any sense, that's just kind of the way I'm trying to cope with it, because man, he's just said it. He's getting so many chances, deserves multiple points in each of these games, and for him to come out with 0, it's just crazy. Also have to talk about Andrew Mangiapane. He made his Blackhawks debut in this one. Played under 9 minutes of ice time, but I thought he was very, very impactful. He was in scrums. He was laying hits, finishing hits. He is an undersized guy, but still willing to lay the body. He also almost had a goal. He was robbed. The Canucks goaltender, Tolo Pilo, absolutely robbed Mangiapane. He kind of wheeled from behind the net, kind of just wheeled to the front of the net, got a shot off, and just Tolopilo robbed him. Slaggert then kicked in the rebound, but it was waved off, rightfully so. So Mangiapane easily could have been on the score sheet in this game, but I thought he played a real good game. I'd said when the Blackhawks acquired him in that trade, I didn't think much of it, but hey, I mean, if he's going to play like this, maybe he'll be a player here for a year or 2. I don't want to look too far ahead, but it was a nice game from Mangiapane, and he was impactful in limited ice time. What didn't help in this one was that the Canucks won 67% of faceoffs with no Nick Foligno, no Jason Dickinson. You kind of expected that would take a hit. Ryan Green was also like terrible in the faceoff circle tonight, so that didn't help anything. But yeah, the Blackhawks only won 32.7% of faceoffs in this game, and that's just not quite a recipe for success. Now, if you're looking at it from a tank perspective, which I know not everybody is a fan of, but for me, I like to monitor both angles. I'm still looking for the Blackhawks to win and how they can win and assessing the game through that lens, but I'm also monitoring the standings, and let's be realistic. Playing for the pick, it's kind of not that the Blackhawks are going to be playing for their pick, but monitoring what kind of draft pick they get, it is relevant at this point, especially with some of the top end talent in this draft. So I like to hit both lenses and look at both situations. So if you're a fan of looking at the tank, here we go. The Blackhawks with this loss to the Canucks, who are by far the worst team. They're 11 points below the Blackhawks even after this win. So they have cemented, the Canucks have themselves at the bottom of the standings. But the Blackhawks fall to 29th in league standings with this loss. In 62 games, they have 56 points. The team right above them is the New York Rangers, who have 56 points as well, just with one less game played. The two teams below them, the biggest competitors for the best draft lottery positions, are the St. Louis Blues and Calgary Flames, who are both 1 point below the Blackhawks, also with one get less game played. So let's say the Flames and Blues both win their next game, the Blackhawks would be in position for the second best draft lottery odds. That would also be assuming the Rangers picked up a point in their next win. So really the three teams to watch in terms of draft lottery odds, in terms of competing with the Blackhawks, are the Rangers, Blues, and Flames. The Canucks, even with this loss tonight, or the Blackhawks loss tonight to the Canucks have still kind of cemented themselves at the bottom, which definitely makes it a little bit more surprising that the Blackhawks weren't able to pick up a win. But it's been probably an emotional couple days for the Blackhawks, losing your whole leadership group as well as a big piece in the room, Colton Dach. So I'm sure that played a factor in, and it may be tough for the Blackhawks moving forward, just missing kind of the voice in the room. Let's get into the takeaways over on Twitter at Blackhawks Focus. Down the stretch, these are probably going to be the ugliest takeaways, hopefully, that I ever have to read moving forward. It should be a little bit more positive, but let's see what we have tonight. First one says, yeah, Dickinson will be sorely missed on this roster. For sure, I just read off the face-off numbers, 32% for the Blackhawks in this game is obviously atrocious. Dickinson helped in the face-off department a lot. Then also from that leadership perspective, I mean, you could look at it from a different perspective, whether it's the shutdown perspective, but from the leadership perspective, Dickinson as well as Foligno as well as Murphy going to be missed. That was kind of on display tonight. The Blackhawks kind of came out of the gate slow, gave up a few goals early, and it took them a little bit to get settled in. Going to take some time for the kids to gel. More on the way, patience. I completely agree. Thank you, Evil Bill, who's someone who watches the videos a lot. Yeah, I think he has a good perspective on stuff. Not many takeaways. Canucks were able to pass it all around us. Face-off percentage, bad, bad, bad. The Blackhawks didn't play terrible through the first two periods. A few of the goals that the Canucks scored early on, kind of just bang plays. It wasn't like the Canucks were dominating in the ozone for extended periods of time. Come the third period, though, when it was a tie game, the Blackhawks weren't really able to take that push or get the push that you would kind of expect versus the worst team in the league. Ethical tank loss and Canuck tank sabotage. Rough first period, lots of good in the second and third. Bedard was awesome, great Donato goal, great Moore assist. Nazar finally gets a goal after a string of good games, and really liked how Mangiapane played. Definitely agree. I don't think we're going to be able to sabotage the Canucks tank again. They're 11 points below the Blackhawks right now, even after tonight's contest. Ethical tank loss in terms from the Blackhawks perspective. Definitely, yeah, I would agree. Bedard was fantastic. It's just criminal that he got no points in this game because he was generating chances. It felt like every other shift. Donato had that nice goal. Nazar, great to see him get rewarded, and I did think Mangiapane played well in this one. I continue to be amazed how bad this team is with the 6-on-5. Feels like they never even get a shot attempt most of the time. I don't know why we keep putting Artie in that spot too. It's been dysfunctional all year. Why not make a change? Yeah, I agree. That's been kind of a talking point the past few weeks, that this might be one of the worst 6-on-5 teams ever, because it really feels, I don't think they have scored on the 6-on-5 this season. I'm not entirely sure if that's true or not, but it sure feels like it. Yeah, I get having Artie out there. That this one was certainly not Artie's fault. Tavo's saucer pass got batted out of midair, and that's what led to the empty net goal, so it wasn't on Artie. But yeah, I don't know if Artie just doesn't quite play quick enough. So I don't know how I like him on like the power play and in these 6-on-5 situations. I don't think that's like going to be a permanent issue. I just think that's kind of a development thing. It's a fast game. I don't know if he's quite thinking one step ahead at every point where you kind of need to make it, especially on the power play, especially on the 6-on-5. So that's why I do kind of like the idea of like a Kaiser, like even of Rinzel, even though he wasn't the best today, kind of taking that spot because they just kind of think one step ahead. And I'm not saying Artie can't get there. I think he will get there, but he's just not quite there yet. So, but today was certainly not on Artie. I'm just throwing that out there in general. The rest of the season goes like tonight's loss to the worst team in the league. It's going to be hard to watch. Good for the draft, though. I think that's completely true. At least, again, we get some Bedard points. That's what I'd ask. Even if the product's going to be ugly and the draft pick's going to be high, can we at least get some Bedard points? No consistency. They play great, and then they play like trash. Can't believe none of those Bedard shots went in. Need Burakovsky and Green off that first line yesterday, dragging Bedard through the trenches on every shift. At this point, kind of just seems like we need Anton Frondel to get over here to supply Bedard with that winger that can really complement his game. I may talk about this in a kind of trade deadline recap video I'm going to do tomorrow. What my version of the lines would be at this current stage. I do kind of want to talk about that. The lines have been a subject. I mean, they're always a subject, but especially as of late. So I do kind of want to chime in with my opinions and give some mock lines. I think that'd be fun. So keep an eye out for that in my upcoming video. I'm not going to do that tonight though. Last one here says, when will the losing end? Hopefully next season. Hopefully next season the losing ends. And after this year, they don't lose any more games. Planning to make kind of a recap video tomorrow after Blackhawks practice. So I'll throw in the mock lines like I said and do just a little bit more of my thoughts because I posted my initial reactions to all of the trades that went down. But now I want to kind of give my thoughts now that I've had a couple days to think about this. I think I have a few new perspectives that I do want to share in that video. So keep an eye out for that. The next Blackhawks game will be Sunday versus Dallas. Actually, it will be in Dallas. That'll be the next Blackhawks game. So stay tuned for that. I'll have a post-game recap video after that one as well.